Welcome. This is William Jewell UIF, and we're here to talk about our project ideas, the culmination of our project ideas as we've gone through the past few weeks of UIF training. The problem which we identified to start all of this off was just this gap between student experiences being actually representative of a true educational experience at Jewell. Because when we get students, we tend to lose them pretty easily, and the rate of student satisfaction across the 4 years that they're here continually declines. So our question was generally addressing how can we bring students here and give them the educational opportunities that make them want to stay and have a successful 4 years at William Jewell College. We identified 4 specific project aims that could possibly address this problem, which we'll talk about throughout this video. We also have included some interviews with the people, with some specific stakeholders whose information we use to kind of further formulate these ideas that we've come up with specifically on our Change Action Canvas. So to begin by introducing our 4 ideas, we'll have Jack start.
Perfect. So like Tavares mentioned, we had four kind of different ideas or ways to address this problem that we identified by interviewing and talking with first years. And kind of going back to that, when we interviewed these first years, something that came up that Tavares mentioned already was just the fact that Jewell is not a college that everybody talks about as being a place where you want to go. The interviews didn't reveal students saying things like, I came to Jewell because it was the best school for me, or it was better than every other option. They tend to say things like, oh, I came here because it made the most sense for me, it was convenient, things like that. And I think you could only reasonably draw the connection between our lower retention rate and that sort of sentiment. So the thing we really wanted to focus on in these project ideas was just trying to make Jewell a more attractive destination for incoming freshmen. So I'll start with mine. My idea was to sort of incorporate like an entrepreneurship career day to be held every semester on Jewell's campus. So what that would entail would be classes wouldn't be called off or anything like that, but out on the quad where everybody had access to it, there would be a variety of different sort of platforms kind of representing different aspects of Kansas City startup community, which is one that is very successful and known from across the country, and just trying to provide students with that opportunity to connect with it, whether they may already be interested in pursuing a career in entrepreneurship in Kansas City, or maybe they just don't know about it yet because they haven't had exposure. So the aim of that would be to kind of to bring that aspect of Kansas City to Jewell and to incorporate it and make it as though Jewell has more to offer to incoming students. So
my idea was about Colloquium Day, where all the students get to present either their journey grant projects or just projects they work throughout the year. And since students are already exposed in their projects and ideas and things they put so much work into it, my idea was to bring people from Kansas City community companies, startup scene, so we could give credit not only to Jewell but those students, and that would possibly open new doors for them once they graduate. And it would be overall very good, not only for the students, Jewell, but also the new future employers, and that would bring easier access to new job opportunities after kids graduate from Jewell.
My project idea had to do with kind of revitalizing our relationship from student to alumni here at Jewell, because one of the points of pride that our institution takes is the fact that a lot of our graduates do get high-end jobs in the professional community right off of graduating. The problem is we're not so aware of who these people exactly are on campus. So I'll just kind of knock out the last 2 project ideas that we had because they kind of both relate to this. The first one of which is just simply creating more of a bridge from William Jewell, which is located in Liberty, Missouri, about 20 minutes from downtown Kansas City, revitalizing the bridge from our institution to the professional world in Kansas City. We believe that there would be this would be a useful avenue to offer students the ability to kind of express their own interests in the various professional communities within Kansas City which we are not doing enough. So creating a bridge could look like inviting more alumni to campus for different events. Colloquium Day would be a good example of that. It could look like us giving or more widely promoting our career mentorship program, which we do have but isn't used on a wide scale. Maybe 10 students or less a year use this program. So maybe it's revitalizing that program. So the second idea that we have relating to kind of recharging our relationship with the professional community in Kansas City is getting more involved in the startup space in Kansas City, because it's really thriving, and our innovation efforts here at William Jewell aren't really connected to anything having to do with Kansas City. So we think that with us having such a close proximity to that this would be a great opportunity for us to kind of get involved early on, so that we have these ties with the professional world in downtown Kansas City that allows students other professional opportunities that other colleges don't, or just don't have the resources to offer. So if we can capitalize on our ability to kind of use the Jewell education while we're here, as well as using our alumni network, then we think that there would be a good effort in having just more educational opportunities for students while they're here, which is a point of attraction and could be a point of retention as well. So all in all, these are our project ideas, which we'll talk about more throughout this video in more depth with our specific stakeholders, which we decided to interview to get their feedback on these ideas. Now, we think that there definitely is some more development that we'll have to do on these, and we plan on further developing these ideas to be a little more specific, because they are a bit general right now. But once we do that, we plan on sitting down with the president of our institution and presenting them to her in order just to kind of get a feel for how doable these things would be and which avenues we need to take if we were to actually put one of these project plans into effort. So I hope you enjoy, and this is William Jewell UIF.
We could all sit on this side of the table.
Okay. So you want to start?
Yeah, so like Tavar said, we've kind of already been working on these projects and kind of ideating and prototyping about them. And so we'll go ahead and just start off with the problem statement, because what all of these 4 projects are approaches to solving this problem that we identified on campus through an earlier part of our training. And our problem statement ended up being, how do we make Jewell a more attractive destination for incoming college freshmen? Because what we found after doing a lot of talking and interviewing freshmen and first years was that Jewell, in some regards, has kind of become a choice of convenience rather than a school that students want to come to, for such and such, ... And I don't know if that's true across the board, but it was certainly true among some groups. So our first project that we thought about was inviting Kansas City businessmen and businesswomen or professionals to do Colloquium Day every year, where students present their work at the end of every academic year. So, and our metric of success was the question we're asking ourselves is, are we giving Jewell students ample opportunities to sort of network with their future employers or potential employers? So
yeah. So I guess just hearing that, what are your initial impressions of that idea?
I think that Colloquium Day is a very good day that showcases Jewell students. So certainly getting that in front of a different audience is advantageous. It has an advantage in that it already is something we do. It just depends on how well we can get people to attend and show up or come. I know that would give some key people in Kansas City or some business leaders a clearer idea of who we are. And that might make students at Jewell more connected or feel more validated. I'm not sure how long that takes to translate to an incoming student. I certainly think that would, for people, because a lot of people who present there are juniors or seniors, and that might give them a showcase for the future. You know, one of the things that is hard is that there are a lot of things that we have, like the mentor program that's due today, that students have available to connect with people in the community, but our Jewel students are way over scheduled, like many people in the world today. So whenever you are asking them to take on something else or to add something else, that becomes problematic. So if there's a way you can leverage something that already exists, like Colloquium Day, that would be helpful. So I certainly think that helps us connect more with people in the community, or thinkers or leaders in the community. I don't know how long that takes to translate necessarily to high school people who might want to see Jewel as a destination college, but that certainly promotes Jewel among people in Kansas City.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like this idea of getting people to kind of come, or getting people to come to Colloquium Day. Do you think that if you kind of reframed what the purpose of that day was, rather than just sort of like this thing for like students and their families like to come see them present, if it was kind of reframed as something where you're presenting your research to like qualified individuals, do you think that it would kind of increase the amount of interest in doing a colloquium presentation?
It might. I don't know, because a lot of the colloquium presentations are very academic, and so and that might translate into, certainly, because it showcases a lot of the strengths of the Jewel students and the critical thinking and the things that they've worked on. And some of the presentations, I think, have more affinity to being presented to external publics than perhaps others. I don't know if that changes the way students perceive the day, if they're presenting it that way or not. I don't know what's better for the constituents in Kansas City. You know, taking a day off work and to come to campus and things like that might be difficult. We ask them to come for things like career days and where they're presenting more to students, or to come for like networking events and things like that. But we haven't, I don't think, reached out that much to have them come to this kind of presentation. So
okay. Did you?
Are there any kind of like changes like to this proposal that we just made? Like, are there any like tangible changes that you would recommend that we would make to that before we went about implementing a project like that?
I think you would need to identify like what kinds of people in the Kansas City community would be your target public for that. I don't know if these are people who are human resource people, or if they're the leaders or the thought providers, or in organizations or things like that, that might come. I don't know that necessarily it's a great fit for HR people, but maybe for people in Kansas City who want to understand more about what our students do or about. And I think part of what you're interested in doing is making it somehow more advantageous for students to do it then, because it might help them network or connect. So you might want to have a conversation with some of the target publics. Who are these people in Kansas City that you would want to invite? Is this the type of event they'd want to attend, and get their input on that too?
Okay.
So,
gonna go to the next one. Sure. Okay. So the next one that we had was offering courses in like online technology-based innovation for students, to give them some sort of alternative sort of benefit of coming to Jewel and being a Jewel student. So like a lot of schools are starting to, excuse me, I feel like I'm sneezing. A lot of schools are starting to do this thing where they'll have like an online program that you can take in addition to your like actual program, your physical classes. And you can learn like a skill in web design, or you can learn like how to do like basic, design thinking things, or like anything regarding innovation. How does that idea sound to you? Like,
I certainly think that's a good idea. And thinking outside the box in the way that we package things is important. You guys are probably aware that there has been a major at Jewel for the last, 5, 6, 7 years in integrated digital media. That was in the art department, and then last year it was moved into the communication department, and now it's digital media communication. And so one of the things that we have identified as a really big need is someone who has that skill set to kind of lead that program. And so, because right now what we have is we have skilled adjuncts who are doing things, and you can get good people as adjuncts. But that certainly might be something that could be folded into that, because we are offering courses in coding and graphic design and digital photography and some of those web things. And some of those are done primarily in face-to-face classes, but there also is an online presence with some of those, but perhaps packaging some of the things in smaller chunks, or having something that might be online only as a part of those kinds of courses. They just approved a digital media minor. And so that's something that more students might choose to take with those courses. And if there might be a way to package some of that so that it wasn't necessarily a 14-week class, or it wasn't only face-to-face classes, might be appealing. And I think brainstorming or investigating some of the different models might be worth doing.
Do you know how many students are currently in the digital media communication program?
It's new to our department, and I don't have the figures right in front of me. I know there's, more than 10 or so that are taking it, and then other people are doing the courses, because like we have Maggie Shear, physics professor, who's teaching some of our coding courses. And so that is a digital media communication course, but it also is part of the data science major, because that's a new endeavor as well. So those are both new majors, new endeavors. And so we need to shore up, I think, how we're doing those, and have even more faculty expertise, adjunct expertise, but certainly thinking about how things could be packaged that aren't in the traditional packaging might make them attractive in a broader way.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. So how do, what's the clearest way that you think this program is going to be something that gives a student necessary skills to succeed kind of in the realm of digital media? What's the why was Jewel we should have this major?
Initially it was part of the art department, and a recognition that a lot of the things that were being done in design were no longer like paper and pencil, or that kind of, a lot of it was web-based, and a recognition that those kinds of production web design skills were starting to be necessary for people in a variety of fields. And so this kind of blending of business and technology and design and those things that we were seeing in the world of work and interest, and then moving it into the communication area, because it is a form of communication. It's just a form of digital communication, design communication, and starting to build a stronger foundation, both theoretically and skill, for that. Is why it was put in our department. But we really need to identify a person who has the right skill set to kind of lead that. And I think that putting this kind of different type of course, or a different way of delivering a course, would be an important consideration for that. We don't need to be tied to the old way of delivering a course if we've got a kind of fresh, contemporary, cutting edge kind of major or course set or minor or whatever. So,
okay.
But
are you gonna?
Yep. That was very insightful. So, in this one, on a bit of a different note, but still kind of approaching or addressing the same problem, we had the idea for a project of trying to connect the student body to opportunities in Kansas City's startup community. It is a city in the Midwest and across the nation that's known for kind of this up and coming startup space, and it's doing very well. And I think that's kind of a place that Jewel comes up a little bit short. I think it really, for having such a good academic standing and reputation, especially in this area, I think we could do a lot more to kind of connect students interested in business, particularly, but also more on the technological side, whether that's physics, biology, across the board. And so the idea is kind of having like an entrepreneurship career day, where we sort of invite, whether it's like people that work in venture capital. There's the Student Venture Fund in Kansas City that I work for, and I know a lot of other students also work for or are interested in. And then also, I wish I had the actual sketch in front of me. But there's also different companies, and we invite all of them together. Or and then the last component of that is alumni who now work in this entrepreneurship startup ecosystem, kind of inviting them back and having them out on the quad or in the union or something like that. And whether you have a group of students that is interested in that already, or maybe they haven't been exposed to it yet, but they would be good for it. Just kind of trying to make that link. That's another one of our project ideas.
Yeah, and I think that's another great idea. One of the things that I'm very aware of is that there are a lot of opportunities. Like you say, in Kansas City, there's a lot of venture capitalism. There's a lot of startup think tanks, creative people, and we have already a number of events at Jewel. But what we need to do is try and connect students to these opportunities and to these events in a way that opens up possibilities rather than feeling like another task that's limiting. Because overscheduling is one of my biggest concerns. Because, like I mentioned, the Career Mentor program today, that is an amazing program. And if a person wants to work in venture capitalism, or if they want to do something with a startup, they can get a mentor in that area. There are ways to do that, but trying to get the word out or get people to actually step forward to do that is hard. And so, for the last decade or so, I've organized with our students in the department a career day in communication, and it's always very popular, but the only way we can get students there is if we cancel classes and require attendance. So the dilemma becomes, Jewel students are amazingly gifted, very capable, and very involved. But because they are so scheduled and so involved, how do we take something else off their plate, or how do we add this in as a way that's a part of what they do, rather than feeling like they don't have time for it? Because I get that from students all the time when I say, you got to do this, or this is a great thing, or I'll schedule a internship day and bring in speakers and stuff, and then I have a hard time finding a time that students can attend. So I think that certainly the event is worth pursuing, and I think it has a lot of merit. But then how do we fold it into things that are being done? How do we get courses at Jewel, like I'm teaching public relations this semester? How do we work with a course that might exist for that course to make that part of what the course does? Because if it's a part of a course, or if it's a component as part of an assignment, like here are 5 different things that you can do as part of your credit or part of your activity. I mean, the way that we get students in our department to do internships is now it's required. But a lot of them kick the can down the road until they have to do it. But then I see all the evaluations that come from the supervisors on internships, and most of these people who write those evaluations, who are people in the business community, have seen people from the big research colleges. They've seen people come out of specialized coursework in a lot of area, but overwhelmingly they say that Jewel students do better. And the reason why the Jewel students do better is the Jewel students don't wait for people to tell them what to do. They don't wait for a prescriptive model to follow, which is what most of the interns do. What the Jewel students are somehow able to do is they can see a possibility and step forward with an idea. And so what we've got to start doing sooner is to have students recognize that they're doing this, and to engage in opportunities to do it, like what you're talking about with this think tank and stuff. But my struggle is always, how do we fold this in? Because you guys are too overcommitted and overscheduled people. I mean, I'm not telling you anything new. And so how do we make this a part of Jewel? How do we get it to be a part of the fabric of who we are, rather than trying to get the student athlete, or the student athlete who also has a job, and this person who wants to do 2 majors and all this stuff, to recognize the value and to take the time to engage in these. And so there's got to be a better way to do this. What we typically have done is we've just piled on more things. Here's another opportunity. Here's another opportunity. And instead of feeling like a reward or something, it feels like a burden.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I don't want to shoot down any ideas, because I'm all for it. And I especially like ideas that come from students, because these are the things you guys want to do. So we can try and find a way to make it work. We can try and find a way to do it. But we may need to sweep away some of the old crap to make room for it. And that's what we're not very good at doing. What we're not good at doing is saying, what has to go to make space for this? I tell students all the time, don't have to have a second major. Get a major and then seize all these other opportunities that you can do with a major. But everybody wants the 2 majors because that's credentialing, that's the labels. So
that's interesting that, like you say, like kind of this old, like out with the old, in with the new sort of thing, because it seems like there are like these kind of like fixtures in the Jewel community that like everyone just kind of doesn't question. Like this thing happens year after year. I mean, I don't know how successful it is year after year, but it happens year after year.
Have to do it, right?
So. And some of those are really good. I mean, I love that we have Serve and Celebrate as a part of homecoming, because that gets people connected with philanthropic endeavors. It gets them to out in the community. It gets them to see those opportunities. But a lot of people, if it wasn't part of a point system that had a trophy at the end, they wouldn't be doing that. And then the nest points. I mean, again, you're going to it because you're getting that, and those are good and those are motivators. But we can't just pile on. We've got to clear out some stuff and say, those things are good, but we got to get rid of that to make space for this other.
And it was kind of like, I don't know if like just within like my fraternity, like when like we heard about Serve and Celebrate, everyone was like, oh, we have to go to that. And it was kind of like, it's not like that we have a problem going. It's like the fact
there's no room.
It's another thing.
There's no room.
It's 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Like,
and so that's one of the things. I mean, I love your ideas, and I love ideas that come from students, and I love, let's try to leverage this stuff. But the people who do it are the people who are already overscheduled and overworked. So what do we need to look at in terms of the landscape to say, okay, Jewel's different. We don't do this stuff, which is all the busy work. We're focused on this stuff, which is the important work. So one of the things I might challenge you to help us do, those of us that are kind of part of the old school mold, is to say, what is it that's going on here? We got to clear out. Because if these are the things you guys want to do, if these are the things we need to make space for, what needs to go?
Interesting.
Because this is not just a Jewel phenomena. This is an everywhere in the world phenomena. Nobody ever gets rid of stuff. They only add on more.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to give you more to do, but
no.
There's always more to do.
Yeah.
So our last one was so this one is probably the most vague one that we have, just because I don't know. I just don't know where to go with this one.
It ties into the other one so pretty well, though. Yeah.
So like there is a large Jewel community in the professional world in Kansas City. We were just like, Sophia was telling us about how like there's a lot of Jewel grads that work at Commerce Bank where she works, like things like that. But I'm not sure how prominent or like how much the students are aware of like who these people are, where they're working, like they say like, oh, Jewel grads get great jobs all the time, or it's like, where are these jobs at? Like we don't like know what it is. So we feel like that there needs to be some sort of we just need to kind of readdress this bridge between Jewel students and the Kansas City professional community, because we have a great opportunity being so close to the city to kind of exploit that. So how, like, in what ways can we connect, or do you think that beyond what we're already doing, what ways are good ways of connecting students on a mass scale to Jewel in the Kansas City community?
And I know you don't want to go back to what we're already doing, but I think there's so much going on that people don't know about. Because I think I mentioned Biz Time to you a couple of weeks ago, and you're like, you weren't familiar with that.
I still don't know what it is.
Yeah, and so I've been having conversations with both Kelly Sketty and Shelley McFay because they have taken on Biz Time now, and thinking about rebranding, maybe calling it C squared for coffee, communication, conversation, something. And I'm going to try and start working to bring people out of the communication, digital media kind of fields as well. But that's like a 10:15 on Monday optional thing. And it's built in so that students in business courses have to go. So then do we build it in so it becomes a part of an assignment in communication courses or in other courses? But most of those speakers are people from the Jewel alumni, and they're people at Commerce Bank. They're people in, cool professional entrepreneurial areas. But if only people who are business majors, and then only some business majors, again, it's another thing you have to go to or another thing. But we need a better way to put this out there. So for a small community, there's a lot going on here. Marissa Bland is doing some really cool stuff in career development, like the Career Mentor Program. I mean, some of my students have gotten a different mentor like 4 semesters in a row, and they have gotten somebody who started his or her own business. They've gotten somebody who's worked for a big corporation. They've tested different careers. They've shadowed people, and this is available for every student. And you can just say, I want somebody in this area. I really want to find out more about this, and you can get a mentor. They find you somebody, and those are often Jewel alums as well. And so, but somehow, a lot of our students aren't either aware, or they don't find they have time, or they don't leverage some of those things. So I do think creating new things is good, but how can we rebrand something like Biz Time? How can we make the larger community aware that these are cool Jewel alumni? Every single Monday at 10:15, you can stop and have conversation and coffee, and you can learn all about these different things. How do we put the information in front of people so they see it? Because, like you weren't even aware, and you are more aware than most people are on campus of what's going on. So if you don't know about it, then a lot of people don't know about it.
I think another important kind of question to ask ourselves too is how can we make it known not only to the current students but also the students that are coming in?
Students,
that's where our problem is, because I think a lot of students come into Jewel and maybe they don't know about a lot of these things like the Career Mentor Program or Biz Time or whatever it is across the board, but you kind of figure it out, and if you're willing to seek out opportunities, things like that will come up. But like when I was a prospective student here, I didn't know about any of these things. I was just told like the stock, like the 3 things, journey grant, blah, 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 blah. But I think if I had been told, and I ended up coming here anyways, but if I had been told about some of the stuff that we've been discussing, I think I would have been like Jewel alumni in the Kansas City community, Career Mentor Program, things like that. I think I would have been like, okay, Jewel's like, I really want to go to that school, because when I look at KU, I look at UT, and it's like, they don't have that stuff.
Yeah, and so I think that Jewel is moving in the direction of making that clear, and bringing in Eric now, who's doing admission and marketing, and kind of looking at that big vision stuff. He may be a key person to go to with some of your things. I don't know if you've scheduled an appointment with him, but he's a Jewel alum, and he also is looking at this kind of thing, because we can't hide our light under a bushel and think people will figure it out. And so you've got to make sure that it's apparent to both prospective students and to current students. And so Jewel is stepping forward and doing more. And so his information, he's the person who helps craft decisions about where do we spend our marketing money? How do we reach out to prospective students? What prospective students do we reach out? What is our messaging? And so letting him know what students are interested in or what works and that kind of stuff, I think, is key. So even sharing information, like in your conversations with current Jewel students who are first years or second years, and what attracted them, or what didn't they know, or why are they coming? They're reaching out, and they're using Kurt Bartholdi, who's doing a lot of the focus groups and the surveys and trying to find things out. but sometimes students talking to other students uncover things that aren't apparent perhaps in some of the more formal research studies. And so I think trying to funnel some of that to him. And, we have our standard visit day, and usually if students come to Jewel, they are more motivated and more interested in, if they come for a visit, than to then attend, because they see more of it. But then we've got to get people here. So what's our messaging, and what do we lead with? And certainly things like Journey Grant are good.
Right.
But then if we also lead with some of these other opportunities, because I know you work on the Hilltop Monitor. If you go to a big school, your chance of working on the newspaper.
Yeah.
And so, but part of that's also our dilemma. It's both our blessing and our dilemma, because because our students are overscheduled, because they've got a lot of opportunities, they're engaged in a lot of opportunities. But I have friends of my daughter who went to big schools, and all they did was sit in a class of 800 people, and they never ever got to engage in any kind of opportunity, activity, initiative, etc. So we've got to be able to leverage that better.
Okay.
But I think we also, because of the reality of the world we live in, we've got to get better at concentrated and focused engagement instead of trying to do it all, because our students are trying to do it all, and they're not able to engage in things in a focused way because they're spread too thin. So we got to figure out that part too.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I mean, I feel like if you can talk to a high school student and be like you can carve your own path, and it can be manageable. Like, you won't feel like you want to pull your hair out. Like it's going to be something where what you want to do is what you can do. Like, I feel like that might be a compelling point.
Right.
Because most high schoolers, like, they're going into it like, what do they have to offer me? And it's kind of like, they don't really express what they have to offer. It's kind of like, do you want to come here or not? We're this school. This is what we're about.
Yeah, and so your ideas about novel ways to package things, novel ways to put things together, I think these are conversations we need to have, because a lot of my students don't think about internships until it's required, and then they do it. And so not that we want to just make everything required, but what requirements do we have that we need to do away with? Or how do we fold some of the things that you're talking about, like maybe doing a smaller digital course that people can do? How do we fold that into our existing programs? Because then if academic credit is part of that, then that moves them toward their goal of the degree, and it feels like it's part of what they do rather than another add-on. Does that make sense too?
Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully I didn't go down too many directions that weren't helpful.
No, that was really helpful. That's all that we had. Thank you for that. That was good feedback.
Alrighty. I was going to say something else to the two of you too. I don't know if you want to put it on.
You guys have a blank canvas you can send me at some point? Is that something?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, so to kind of start with what our change model canvas looks like. So our big idea that we're tackling as our problem question is just kind of how do we make Jewel a more attractive place in general for incoming high school students and students once they get here to retain them. We came up with 4 different kind of general ideas of project areas that we would want to work in order to try to complete that goal. The first one that we did was an entrepreneurship career day. So it's kind of separate from we already offer sorts of career days here, but we would envision one being a little more specific towards the entrepreneurship community and the innovation community, getting students kind of interested in ideas of design thinking, getting them interested in ideas of ownership and stuff like that. So we thought that would be one interesting way to try to garner interest for these sorts of things. So just off that, what's your initial reaction to?
I like it. Are you thinking high school students or current students or both?
So the main objective in that really would be for main students, to answer your question up front, but it would be just trying to connect Jules students, whether it's business or biology or civil engineering or anything, to just the startup community in Kansas City, because it is something that should be taken advantage of, because it's one of the best in the Midwest, and it's one of the best in the country. And so there's not really a way that we could give that directly to high school students or incoming students, but if it's shown over a couple of years that having an entrepreneurship career day every semester leads to, you know, this many Jewel students, you know, going into venture capital and being successful, or joining a startup or doing their own startup or whatever it may be,
Right.
and it's kind of like a trickle down.
So there's a couple ways to think about that. One is you could do a whole day. Two, we have, in business, we have a Truex lecture, and then we cancel classes now for the day, and we bring in speakers all day, and workshops and stuff like that. So you could couple it with that, and in the first year, just do a track, an entrepreneurship track.
Yeah.
Right, and then see how it goes, and if it's popular, what comes out of that. Maybe even one of those sessions is ideating around what this could look like at a bigger level. And next year, we're gonna do that, I think, the second week of classes, just to do it right away, to hit the ground running and stuff. So I mean, that's an idea to, if you wanted to, like, dip your toe in and go, okay, let's do that, we could do a track, and then maybe you guys could lead a ideation session at the end and say, what could we do bigger? Anyways, that's a thought, I like it. One quick feedback too is we just, yesterday I had a meeting with, people who are working in all different kinds of colleges in entrepreneurship. And that was one of the things that came up was that, because we're trying to figure out how do we collaborate together to bring Kansas City to get bigger, to better make overall better. And one of the things that came up is that students need to see people in entrepreneurship mentor, and then, but even these anecdotal kind of stories can ignite passion in people, right? So
Yeah.
I think you're onto something.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a segue into our next project I did, which was strengthening our alumni connection, just specifically within like the professional world, because there are a lot of, you know, Jewel always says like, you know, like that there's a lot of great Jewel grads who are doing really cool things like in the professional fields, their respective professional fields, but we don't really like, as students, I don't know if we're overly like familiar with who those people are. Yeah. So kind of making it more visible who exactly, and specifically in Kansas City, we can connect with as Jewel alumni, maybe just to build connections, to, you know, hear some advice, get feedback, anything, just kind of strengthening that bond.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the things that came up there too was doing, because that's a common sentiment, and doing a portal, one that would show you any event. So like the design workshop you're doing could go up there. UMKC does a pitch day. You know, all these things, like everything could go there. But then also there'd be a matching opportunity. So if you had an idea and you wanted to think about a new business in X, you could find out if someone else was in that field, or a mentor who's maybe kind of gone down that path already.
Yeah.
Something like that. But we could do that. We could do that with Jewel specifically pretty easily, I think, with the alumni office. Just has to see what that looks like. I call the alumni office all the time and say, okay, I have a student interested in X. Give me a list of alums I can reach out to connect them. Like I just did that with Sophia first. She wants to move to San Francisco, right? So we looked at that. But then we do in business, we do biz time. So it's every Monday, and that's all alums. Well, not all, but definitely a lot of alums. But anyways, I wonder if we could use that model somehow.
So what we were thinking kind of, or what the last meeting we had talking about this, we noticed those, like we have the career mentor program, like we have this time. The problem is communicating that and getting students actually recognize, like, or find something to gain out of those experiences to make them want to go, to make them, you know, interested.
Right,
in
you
those
make them
things.
go in business, but and they always like it. But yeah, but you're right. How do you get that? One just along those lines. One of the things we're doing next year is we're calling it Jewel Cubed, and we've invited other departments to be a part of it.
Okay.
And so I think that might help. But I would love to hear what you guys think about how could you get that word out more. You know.
I mean, I think their professors would help. Like the semester I'm taking a business class, and that's what I know about this time, but like I didn't know before. So I think other professors could tell their students to go, maybe like even an extra credit opportunity for just a few, like once or twice, come and watch it.
Yeah.
Get that talk with like alumni and business in general.
Yeah. So communications is jumping on with us next. They're gonna start doing it with us. But yeah, I think you're right. So how do we get other people to do it? And I don't know if So, like, we used to tweet about it, but I don't think, we don't have,
We, this is another issue entirely. Jewel really does have to work on social media presence.
right. But nobody, well, one, we didn't have that many followers, so we were trying to get like all of our business majors to follow us, but I don't know, yeah, whatever you guys think on that, we would love to hear. I mean, we could do highlights of, if everyone's using Instagram, I mean, we could put a highlight of the speaker and that every week. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
guys tell us what people would use and we'd be glad to.
Mhm.
I think maybe putting things about the alumni that relates them to like people at Jewel right now. So
Mhm.
maybe, oh, they were part of this group, they were part of this fraternity or sorority, they play this, like things that people can be like, oh, I could be that person in the future, we have something in common. And
Yeah,
maybe,
some connection. What platform are people using the most?
I would argue, I would guess Instagram or something.
Yeah, it's probably split between kind of Instagram, Twitter, and then I think you have some people that follow like LinkedIn pretty closely, especially more like business oriented people maybe.
I feel like Jewel events is mostly Instagram, because like they post on stories and anyone can see the story.
Mhm.
Okay, so maybe stories, okay, that's good to know. Okay.
Okay, so the next one that we had, I guess we loosely talked about this one kind of, but the next idea that we had was integrating Jewel more into the KC startup space.
Mhm.
So this might look like partnering with startup groups in Kansas City. This might look like funding or empowering students to kind of think more in a startup mentality. We just feel like there's a space in Kansas City to have that kind of
Mhm.
education, that kind of experience, but we're not necessarily
Right.
capitalizing on it like we should.
So let's definitely talk about that, because that was what my whole meeting yesterday was about, with, trying to figure out how could we collaborate to have this startup kind of feel. It's, you know, that you guys would see it, others,
Mhm.
students from other schools would see it. Because there is a lot going on.
Yeah.
And what we were talking about yesterday, we don't know what's going on because there's no central place to get the information, right? And so, yeah, that's one of the things like the portal came up and stuff, like how could we get it so people, I can just say, oh, if you're interested, go check this out.
Mhm. Yeah. One thing that I kind of pulled from this week at the sessions that we went to was it seems like a lot of the people in the startup space are very they have a kind of paradigm that they work off of, which is like do it big, do it fast.
Mhm.
It's a very like rapid and high paced kind of feeling where partnerships are made through friendships, and like these things are just kind of like these ideas that pop up and they just kind of go for it. So I thought that would be kind of maybe an interesting way to look at framing this issue to try to find some solutions.
Yeah, let's figure out how we can keep talking about that, because I think I'm 100% on board with that.
Oh, you want to talk about that? As a part of this, like, innovative design classes?
Okay, so like kind of incorporated with that too, one of the questions we posed in the second part of our training this year, which during when we interviewed first year students, was kind of gauging interest on like adding to Jewel's curriculum with like an online technology. What was it like? I don't remember the exact word.
UI UX design.
Yeah.
So UI UX design. You're familiar with this, right? Yeah. There were people like we met some people there. Or I did. But I met some people there who are UI UX designers, and that's like kind of something that schools are starting to push more, just in terms of giving students a knowledge basis for doing anything in the innovation field, because it's really one of the more general things that you can learn and then apply to anything in any sort of way.
Right, and those are almost like, you can do it online and get a certificate, right?
Yeah.
And then schools just kind of have to validate them, or,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was an idea that we were having earlier in the year. Yeah. And the last idea that we had was connecting more professionals and alumni to Colloquium Day, and kind of presenting that day as an opportunity to present your work not only to your peers and your family or whoever else comes, but to people in the field who who would be able to give you helpful feedback on what you're doing essentially, and provide a little bit of a model or help in guiding you towards where you want to get. Because the projects that we do at Colloquium Day are very well thought out. Like the students worked on them for months, so this seems like a great opportunity to kind of showcase Jules' work.
Right, I like that idea. I wonder if we could move it downtown. If we had a friendly partner.
Or have like part of it downtown, have students,
And even if, you have all these different spaces on campus that we use, so you could also use different spaces downtown, right? I just don't know how easy that would be, but when you got some shared workspace down there, you got Commerce, you got other, CBiz, you got a lot of places that might let you have a room or two. It'd be interesting to think, and then invite people in, because you could plan it out so there's tracks at certain places.
Yeah, and we only do it once a year, right? So it's like if you put the time in, I feel like it's doable to kind of have this one Jewel event, somewhere downtown where everybody comes. You invite a ton of people, alumni, everything. It might be difficult scheduling with it being during the day, but you could even move to a weekend like a Saturday.
Right.
And honestly, that might be better because I know a lot of people can't go to presentations because they're in school there. So, we have school off, I guess.
Yeah, we cancel classes.
Just like families getting up here and other people having jobs, it might be difficult that way.
It's like a good way to give like more credibility to the school and the students who put so much work into it. So.
Oh yeah, and they're good. Every day, every time I go to program, I'm like, man, we have great students. You know what I mean? Every time you're just kind of overwhelmed with how much talent there is, and that's what you'd love to have showcased in Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
It's a good idea. I'm trying to think who's in charge of that committee. Obviously we couldn't do it this year, but it might be good to meet with that committee and talk to them about it.
I'm not sure who's in charge of Colloquium.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I will see it soon because they will make announcements pretty soon here about getting students to sign up for it. But I'll keep my eyes. So what's next on these? Like what?
Oh, after this little
Yeah.
interview. Well, now that we've kind of gotten your feedback, and we also spoke with Dr. Chastain, and then we're going to talk with Kyle also. And after kind of collecting this feedback, we're going to go ahead and put these projects, on the road. We're going to go ahead and start moving forward with them.
Yeah. So I would highly suggest you try to get a meeting with Dr. McLeod-Walls.
Okay.
Because she is very interested in this kind of stuff too, and to keep UIF in front of her. Because she loves UIF, but she's so busy. But I would just say, can we have 15 minutes to run by, and you can blame it on you, you're supposed to. But I think she would have some ideas behind this too.
Okay.
One of the things that, you can keep it on the down low for now, but one of the things we're working on, and it won't come as a surprise because you've heard this before, but is that space in Curry Hall, could we turn that into an incubator for nonprofits and for-profits? And so entrepreneurs would be in our space more too, right? And then you create great opportunities to bring experienced entrepreneurs on to do teaching there, help mentor there, but then get our students involved. I would love to see some, especially business students get your classes done in 3 years, and your 4th year is apprenticing with the incubator or one of the startups or something like that. What does that look like? So anyways, I think there's some cool models that we could have, and some of your stuff would fit nicely with what would, and she really wants that idea to happen.
Okay.
We're exploring it. There's no commitment, right? There's nothing, but we're looking into it right now. So I think that some of your stuff would show, hey, there's student interest in this too, in order to push that forward. So Tiffany Pollard is her assistant. Do you know who she is? Okay. just send her an email and just say, hey, can we get 15 minutes with a UIF group, or doing our training, we'd love to present this to her. You guys okay with that?
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
Because then she could also direct you to some people, and then, well, after you meet with Kyle and get his feedback too, and hers, then let's, in one of our meetings, at least let's talk through what can we do to get some of this going.
Yeah.
So I think, and nothing on here is too crazy that you can't make it happen, you know? So, I like it.
Yeah, it's kind of all with the goal of, and it's, whenever you're dealing with a situation like Jules, where, you know, you're struggling with low enrollment or whatever else, it's not gonna happen right away, but we kind of all see these as
Right.
building towards that, you know, giving students a reason to come to Jewel other than it just being convenient.
Right.
So,
Well, I think you have a couple of things, like the e-career day, we could easily partner with that with Truex for the fall. That would be super easy. And so I think you could have a quick win on that one and see, we could go, okay, let's do it a little creatively and see what works, and then switch it around, and then maybe it's its own day down the road, or maybe it stays coupled with that. We're coupling that now with accounting too, so there's an accounting track. The trick will be in the spring to let professors in like the sciences know, you know, all the majors who might be interested in that, to go, okay, this is there. So maybe when you're building your syllabus, keep that day open. That's an easy one. The alumni connection, Casey, startup space, some of those aren't as hard as you think, because conversations are already starting. We just gotta really get a sense of what you're looking
Be
for.
the last one, so
Oh,
they
great.
probably won't make it this far.
Excited.
All right, so basically we're here to talk about our change model canvases that we've been working on, or been commissioned to work on by our training. Basically, we need to identify a problem statement. That problem statement that we settled on was how to make Jewel a more attractive place for incoming high school students, as well as like just giving students more opportunities, making it more attractive so that we retain more students. So we have 4 different specific like general change strategies that we wanted to talk about with you, and like we're really just looking for like feedback. Like this is like kind of like the testing portion of these ideas.
Okay.
So the first one is integrating Jewel more into the KC startup space. So what this could look like could be just like creating connections between students and partnerships with outfits that do startup work in the Kansas City area.
Yeah.
This could look like creating more opportunity for students to formulate startup-like ideas on campus, giving more classes and that specific sort of entrepreneurship. But we thought that a way to kind of like embody this idea of critical thinking that Jewel is supposed to be about is by pushing an idea like this. So like what's your immediate reaction to something like that?
Obviously, I agree. I mean, you know me, you
Yeah.
know I agree with this core notion, I think. But yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, I think this is a compelling case that can be made to anybody, which is that the core of this institution should be about critical thinking, and no one can tell me what that means. And then when you get down to the core of it, of what it means is critical thinking is using uncommon solutions to solve very common problems. Critical thinking is empathizing with your users when you're creating a product. Critical thinking is, you know, coming up with, you know, solutions that people haven't thought of before or who have overlooked before. Critical thinking is remixing something that exists and putting it in a new context and using it for different contexts. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's at the core of all of this.
Yeah.
I think that it's, you know, yeah, of course, I think that. I mean, if I'm going to be real honest with you, I don't know that that fixes our problem. So if the problem that you're seeking to fix is this, like, making Jewel more attractive, I don't know just that we would be competent in that area. I don't think that that fixes that problem. But yeah, I mean, of course, like, absolutely, my gut instinct says that's good.
So then, how do we maybe take this as an initiative and make it something that that has the ability to affect like how people view the school? Like, do you think that getting into the startup space is something that would be beneficial in terms of changing people outside of the institution, their viewpoint on the institution?
I mean, again, you're gonna have to take what I say with a grain of salt because I don't know anything. But I think that we're gonna have a hard time getting. I mean, I just think this idea of getting into the startup space is weird. I think that KU, K-State, a lot of these institutions that have like K-State has like a human factors interaction lab. They study like, you know, kind of people touching apps. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they do like real techie stuff at K-State.
Yeah.
KU's got a lot of good programs. I mean, there are people that are doing like startup boot camps and stuff. Centric Training is literally teaching IT professionals. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I just honestly don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, no.
I guess what I'm saying is like a lot of other people, like a lot of other institutions have decent head starts on us, and it's like how much work do we have to do to catch up to these places? And in reality, like if we just like had a functioning UIF, you know, or group on campus that was doing some of these things, I don't think we need to necessarily be making connections into Kansas City. If we could evidence that some of these ideas and like the design thinking and stuff worked right here.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like if y'all had power and resources and access, you all could be doing the design thinking exercises to fix our college. As if, you know what I mean? As opposed to being like, oh, we need to make connections to people in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, also it's just like I think about like just from a design thinking perspective. I think like, well, is that what is prohibiting our students from having connections to the startup world in Kansas City? Nothing is prohibiting us right now. Anyone who wants to can.
Yeah. And that's I guess we can move on to our next one because you kind of talk about this. So one of the big ones that we wanted to focus on was kind of getting re-energizing the connections that students feel with, or as students with the professional world in Kansas City. So like they always say, like, you know, there's all these dual grads that work at these Kansas City places, and they do. There are a lot of like Commerce Bank, for example, like Sophia said that there's a ton of dual grads who work there. Like there are places downtown and just in the Kansas City area where dual grads go. But most students aren't aware of these things. And I mean, there are ways of finding out. You can go to career days, you can go to the career mentor program. But we're interested in trying to find ways to actually make the alumni connections meaningful between students while they're here, without kind of being like, well, here's this other opportunity over here that you can go to if you're really motivated enough to do it. But to frame it as something where it's like, you probably should be doing this at some point in your 4 years here, no matter what course of study you're in. So what do you think about doing something like maybe a project along that lines, or like pushing something to make every student need to have some alumni connection or requirement, but just to re-energize kind of the connection that we have as students with alumni? Do you think that seems like a viable?
I mean, that's kind of where I would have capped out probably the last section, is just that I don't think that as much as we need to like make connections with Kansas City startups, as much as we just need to energize startup culture on our campus. Like when I'm in a classroom and I have interactions with students, and I had 2 students in class that said like, hey, I want to build this app, I'm just like, nothing is stopping you from that, right? The fact that we don't have like all these resources, or like we don't have like a million resources holding your hand along the way, like if we just have a cultural change that reinvigorates us to go to the city, to go to things, to, you know, there's all sorts of ways to do that. So your question was the question was how, like, what would, like, you're asking just like, what do I think about connecting people to alumni in Kansas City? Yeah, I would just tell you all, don't make sure you're not doing somebody else's job for them. I mean, for real, we have a career services office. That's their whole job. Right. So just don't do work that's somebody else's job. But that's just my personal advice. For real.
That's good.
Like, but so yeah, that kind of stuff is great. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be rad. But I mean, I don't know. Not a college student, so I don't know how useful that is.
You were.
I was at one point. I mean, the best advice I've actually heard recently, because I'm trying to break into, you know, a different career path, was literally, I think the thing people forget is that when we have our career day for the Jewel Communication and Theater Society that puts on their career day, they always invite alums in or whatever, and the alums they always choose, like, it's like they always go out and find like the people that have, like, you know, been as successful as they can, you know. And in reality, like, the best mentor for anyone is the person who has your first job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so I want to be talking to people who are like junior UX designers at, you know, VML, right? Those are the people I need to find. Not the associate director of design thinking, right? At IDEO or something like that. You know, like. Yeah, that's. Because those people are overburdened with like, you know, requests and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. I remember they had they kind of like the biz time thing where they invite when the communication department did theirs, and they like made us all go there because it had a 9 a.m. They were like, you gotta be here. And I was like, all right, whatever. And they had like a librarian come talk to us.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, nothing against you, but like, I just thought like, you know,
yeah, we've moved past the place of general career advice being useful. It's nonsense. It's like, you need to be talking to a person who's doing what you're gonna do. So if you know exactly what your job is, like, I don't think going to general career day to be like, I mean, I'm not saying this is not a good exercise or activity. What I'm saying is like, it demonstrates how difficult it is to do
Uh-huh.
those types of activities
Mhm.
because you got to put them on, and then it's like you're getting a panel together, and
Right.
well, really what people are looking for is one-on-one relationships. Those are the most impactful things.
Yeah.
Is like who mentored you, who taught you
Mhm.
this, who taught you that. I don't know. I mean, the only other thought I have in relationship to this is basically just that. I don't know. I think that trying to figure out I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase this. I think we should be doing a lot more. I mean, I think there should be just like significantly more substantial programs in this area.
Mhm.
I think what we do is a lot of like education stuff. It's like, well, here's this, and then you get
Mhm.
off on the right foot, right? Like it's up
Yeah.
to you to do that.
Yeah.
I kind of like where you're going, where you're saying almost like make people do something.
Yeah.
Like make it a part, but it can't be like punitive.
Yeah,
Think
exactly.
about that.
Well, no, it's so I was like just doing like I've been like doing a little research on other schools' cultural studies programs. Most of them will say like you can either take like 9 or you can take like 9 credit hours of extra courses, or you can spend a semester abroad, only have to take 1 of those credit hours, or you can spend a year abroad and not have to take any of those credit hours.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like incentivizing things like that, especially in a cultural studies program, would be something that's like good. So in terms of this, it's like if your objective is to get a job, like you should be looking into your projected career field.
Yeah.
In some way.
Well, I mean, I can just tell you all like what the private competition is for Jewel is the company that I'm going to school for the boot camp. It's like $6,000, and they give me a mentor and a graduate and a money back guarantee if I don't get a job within 6 months. And they have an entire career coaching module where there's literally a class. And I've honestly been thinking about this, so just toy with this idea if you ever wanted to. I think it's interesting that we have these like, we got Marissa Bland over there in the career services office back there in, no
man's land.
No man's land basically behind like no one goes back there.
Yeah.
But it's like, there are these real cutting edge tech, firms that are churning out graduates. They're doing it by saying, no, the getting of the job is a significant part of what our mission for you is.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't get to just come here, go to classes, get your degree, walk across the stage. These places are saying, like, we have an obligation to you. Like, our goal is to place you into a workforce.
Mhm.
So whenever I hear everybody say all this stuff about how Jewel is, like, so deeply connected to Kansas City and stuff, it's like, well, if that were true, why aren't we just literally placing people in jobs? Why aren't we just saying, like, all right, these Jewel graduates, they're so badass, Cerner needs this number of people, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why aren't we just almost crafting our campus around, like, just cutting out the person in the middle and just going, like, straight from training right to the workforce?
Yeah.
There's got to be something that's more like that
Yeah.
and less like a career day.
Yeah.
Because career day allows for a lot of things to go wrong in the middle.
Right.
You
right,
can
yeah.
cannot go. You cannot go. You cannot pay
You can-
attention.
right.
You cannot hear the one thing you needed to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you're sick that day. Maybe it's just like 9 hours of worthless nonsense. Maybe we booked bad presenters. We've had years like that where like all the people at the time are like, oh, shut up. Like, there's some people that like dress nice, and I'm like, it's the internet. Like we didn't need you here. Just the internet, or like being alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So that's kind of that's where my head goes with that. I don't.
Yeah,
that's,
no,
that's,
I mean, that sounds, that definitely sounds more like a viable or strategy for doing something like that. The thing is that we were trying to work on too is getting alumni back into contact with Jewel, and because I feel like there's a lot, from what I've heard of people who work in the call center, things there are a lot of Jewel grads who just kind of
I had this thought that crossed my mind, and then I just kind of pushed it away because I was like, no. But dude, I mean, honestly, that's your real issue. If I'm just saying what your friction is going to be, what some of your friction is going to be, is that if you believe that the right way to design something like this is to do what I'm saying and not put the top tier people that some of these places, but our recent graduates or whatever. Those are the people we have a hard time graduate or interacting with.
Yeah.
I know that this college does.
Yeah.
Because I've talked to people that work in the call center, and I've talked to
it's
Are any of you going to give this place a ton of money when you leave? So
it's that
dead silence on that side. I mean, seriously,
it's that
right?
graph I showed you with the student satisfaction from freshman to senior year. It's a slope downward. So they get students here, they beat them down basically, and then they send them off, and then they don't want to come back.
And it's just how do we expect that to be a positive alumni focus for us? Because if I graduated from this place and somebody told me oh we want to build there'd be a lot of middle fingers for about 10 years. until I forgot and maybe had some actual money.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
even then, that's pushing it 10
Yeah.
years. But I feel like that's what we get. I feel like we get a lot of like, no, not happening, not
Uh-huh.
happening. I think it would be hard to get people to engage.
Yeah. So we kind of, and I guess we haven't really expressed this idea in this forum before, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it.
But that's
So,
how
like-
those people, like now, as you're saying this out loud, that's how those people are invisible, though.
Yeah.
That's how when you describe that problem by being like, there's all these people out here and we always hear about it, but where are they? They're invisible because they don't want to be back here. They don't want to be
Yeah.
a part of this.
Uh-huh. And I mean, they'll bring back one every few years and hire them for a job. But like, other than that, like, if you're not working here, then you're probably.
No, the people that work here are the people who never left. I mean, if I'm being real.
That's true. they work their way up from admissions.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Um,
true. Like, so many admissions folks are people who like graduated from here and then like went and did something else for like 6 months or no time, and then they just like got a job immediately, and that was their job, and then they're just frustrated doing that.
Yeah, that. I don't feel like that helps us.
I mean, I have a friend who now works for Cerner, or he used to work for Cerner, but now he works for this tribal healthcare organization in Alaska. But like, he was frustrated. He worked here for 2 years after he graduated because he was just like, what? This is what the degree prepared me for? Like, he couldn't go find, like, he had a hard time finding another job. And then they
Wow.
gave him a job in admissions, and he made like slightly over $30,000 a year. And he was just pissed off because he was like, all the student loans and everything, like, you told me I was going to be able to get a different job than this. Right? And here I am.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that might be the master strategy, though. You know, you just have the school pay you back for.
Yeah.
I mean, but you got to work for them.
But then you gotta work for them to get the money to pay back for the loans and stuff.
Yeah, you're just.
Maybe you should grow the community by just keeping people here. Like, couldn't find a job, you work here now.
I mean, that seems good.
Sorry, I know I interrupted you.
No, anyways, so we wanted to maybe like rethink how we use colloquium day, because it's like one day a year where we get, you know, these projects that students have spent months working on. They've worked with like qualified individuals like fabricating this project, and then they present it, and it's like, you know, it's a day here that, you know, most students don't go to, some students go to, and families and professors go to. But what if we rethought that as maybe something that was kind of the thing for Jewel education, like had hosted an event downtown where we hosted colloquium day, invited a ton of alumni, and this is like kind of the moment where Jewel students get to show off their work, not only to people from their school, but also people within the actual career fields that they're presenting towards. So we were kind of thinking of, just rethinking how we kind of consider colloquium day here on campus.
Yeah, since I'm not married to colloquium day. Seems weird to me. I've never heard anyone get a project rejected. So if everyone is accepted, and most people do their projects the night before, or I mean, like, I've just talked to so many students over the years
Wait,
that are like,
have students said that they've done their colloquium projects the night
dead serious. All you have to submit for colloquium is not the paper. You submit an abstract. It's just like going to a conference. So like, if you go to like National Communication Association, people like submit an abstract for a paper that they never write, and then they're in theory supposed to go read it at a conference, and then they get there and they just like, they wrote it on the plane or whatever.
They just like talk.
Right, because what colloquium day is to everybody, in my opinion, is a resume line.
Yeah.
It's an awfully expensive, complex, lot of hours put into organizing a resume line that doesn't say what it really is. And yeah, no, I'm on board. Like any kind of reorganization, I think you're gonna have trouble. You'll get feedback from that because it's named after a person. It's got an endowment associated with it. There's money.
That's what we care about.
But that's the honest answer. It's like, you have all the great design thinking you want to, but that's like the David Nelson Duke, whatever the hell it is, colloquium day, and there's money associated with that. There are people who get paid to chair that. It's a little stipend. It's like a fancy thing. Like the thing is like, you all might not think that colloquium day is useful, but like what you probably didn't recognize is that there's like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50 old ass white people that do love it. And they just show up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just go to colloquium day and look around at all the people. You're like, I've never seen this person before, and it's just like someone's grandma, or like, you know what I mean, or like the sister of someone on the board, and it's like, well, this is where the money is. So this is delightful enough. It's solving the thing. It's solving the problem for them. Mm-hmm. They're getting to see Jewel students, you know, show off their really high quality work. So they don't probably have a lot of reason to move it to Kansas City or reconfigure it or whatever, because it's working as is. People are happy shit about this event every year.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, and like, I feel like we attempt to kind of make it the premier thing about Jewel, like where we show off all of the great, like, you know, knowledge production that happens here. But like, we're hardly doing that because like we're hosting it in Gano Assembly and 221, 222.
And it's like sparsely attended, and it's gotten to the point
Very
where like
sparsely attended.
it's fell victim to that, like by growth it's become irrelevant,
Mhm,
right? So
exactly.
like by saying like we want everyone to be involved in it, it's like yeah, well then it's
Right.
not going to be
And-
5 people who made badass projects standing up
Yeah.
in Gano. It's going to be everyone in these little pocketed rooms.
And they end up having sessions from like 8 a.m. clear to like 4 p.m. and it's like nobody wants to go watch projects all day like that. Like, and I remember even I had like when I went last year or last semester, there were a lot of like sessions that would overlap because I'm like, yo, like there were so many. Like, why did you all let so many students do this? Like, it seems like there should be at least a little bit higher standard of rigor associated to these projects.
Yeah, you would think so. Because I seriously I've never been to a colloquium session where all the papers were good. Like it's always just one that I go see, and then I'm like, the rest of these are kind of bad.
Yeah, that definitely could happen. Our last one.
We covered it a little bit, the career day.
Yeah.
Kind of having like an entrepreneurship career day.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So, yeah, basically it was the same idea that's kind of come up pretty frequently, but kind of just having like an entrepreneurship day every semester on campus and just kind of trying to, in some formation, kind of build a connection between Juul's student body and Kansas City startup community, because it is in the Midwest and across the country. It's got a good reputation,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
thriving. And instead of, like you talked about, instead of kind of making students, because there's nothing stopping students from connecting themselves to that now,
Right.
and plenty have, but bringing it here to campus and just kind of more, not so much for the students that are already kind of entrepreneurship minded and
Right.
in that mindset, but maybe for students that have no idea that there's potential there.
Right.
So that was just another project idea.
Yeah, I mean, those things are obviously all great ideas. I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, but I think that's, I mean, again, I know y'all are not looking for my opinion on my way out the door, but I mean, for real, it's just like, yeah, it'd be great to have a startup day on campus, but it's like, that requires resources. It requires the college saying, like, here's the prize. We're going to have a startup competition. The prize will be $10,000 of seed money for your company to start, right? Or $5,000 or $500. Do you know what I mean? It could be straight up just like, we're going to have a competition to who can create the best idea to solve a problem on our campus. Or do you know what I mean? Like those kinds of things. I think that's where it needs to be. I think y'all need buy-in from everybody, and
Mm-hmm.
that'd be rad.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, it'd be. Is that the project? Is that where you're going with this?
Well, so these are just kind of like some ideas that we like really are just playing with. Like these are just kind of like some ones that we were like, we should be moving it. Like these are some problems that we can clearly isolate and maybe some things that we can work on. We might move forward on a couple of these, but like probably not all of them or anything like that. We'll go back into finishing out this canvas, and then yeah, we'll reevaluate then.
Yeah, on the Duke thing, the Duke colloquium thing, you all should just like, I don't know, like try to. I mean, I would just start. Have you all talked to anybody about that?
No.
Oh yeah, just start asking questions and see how defensive people get. If you just do something like, hey, can we get like an entrepreneurship like room, like a section? Like just ask for like a section of Duke colloquium, like if you can get on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Do you know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And then just kind of test it out, and if they're like, nah, you should be like,
Nah.
okay, well then erasing it all and moving it downtown, probably a non-starter.
Yeah, that's probably how that's gonna go. I don't know who's in charge. Do you know who's in charge of colloquium?
Yeah, they have a committee every year. Are we done? Kind of turn this off? Okay.